Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast. Here are tonight's headlines.
First, the United States is warning crowds trying to access Kabul Airport to leave the area as Britain and Australia cited the high threat of a terrorist attack.
Japan will halt the use of 1.63 million doses of Moderna's COVID vaccine after reports of contamination in several vials.
First, the United States warned crowds trying to access Kabul Airport to leave the area as Britain and Australia cited the high threat of a terrorist attack. A flurry of near-identical travel warnings from London, Canberra, and Washington late Wednesday urged people gathered in the area to vacate and move to a safe location. Take a look.
It's hard to overstate the complexity and the danger of this effort. We're operating in a hostile environment in a city and country now controlled by the Taliban, with the very real possibility of an ISIS-K attack. We're taking every precaution, but this is very high risk.
Now, British Armed Forces Minister James Heappey described the threat as very serious and imminent. Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs said there was an ongoing and very high threat of terrorist attack. Do not travel to Kabul Hamid Karzai International Airport. If you are in the area of the airport, move to a safe location and await further advice. Australian Defense Minister Andrew Hastie later referred to suicide bombings, saying the situation has deteriorated so much now that the U.S., Australia, and other countries have told people moving to the airport to turn back because the risk of a suicide bomber is so high, the threat situation is increasing. Hastie told 6PR Radio in Australia. London issued a similar warning, adding if you can leave Afghanistan safely by other means, you should do so immediately. The Islamic State's Afghanistan-Pakistan chapter has been responsible for some of the deadliest attacks in those countries in recent years. It has massacred civilians at mosques, shrines, public squares, and even hospitals. But while ISIS and the Taliban are both hardline Sunni Islamist militants, they are rivals and oppose each other. The crowds at the airport have led to chaos throughout the airlift operations, with thousands of U.S. troops trying to maintain a secure perimeter for evacuation flights. And despite the harrowing scenes, the Taliban have ruled out any extension to next Tuesday's deadline to pull out foreign troops, describing it as a red line.
Meanwhile, Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo announces that the country has stopped the evacuations from Kabul Airport in the framework of Operation Red Kite. Take a listen.
De Belgische regering heeft gisteravond aangekondigd dat ze de evacuaties van op de luchthaven van Kabul zou stilleggen. De laatste C-130 vlucht is dan ook om 21:30 tijd van Islamabad geland. Deze beslissing werd genomen op basis van een uitdrukkelijke aanbeveling van onze defensieteams die instaan voor de veiligheid van de eigen militairen, die instaan voor de veiligheid van het diplomatiek personeel, het consulair personeel en natuurlijk ook die instaan voor de veiligheid van de mensen die we geprobeerd hebben te evacueren.
The Dutch government said it would stop evacuation flights from Kabul on Thursday in what it acknowledged was a painful moment that would leave some people behind in Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. The Netherlands said it had been ordered by U.S. forces to leave ahead of the withdrawal of American troops on August 31st and advised people to avoid the airport for security reasons. The Dutch embassy and military team at Kabul Airport would also fly out on the last planes on Thursday, it said. The Dutch government said the rapidly deteriorating security situation around the airport, where Western officials have warned of a possible terror attack, was also taken into account.
And Australia's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Marise Payne, said there is a high threat of a terrorist attack near the airport in Kabul, urging its citizens and those with a visa for Australia to leave the area. Take a look again.
We have changed our travel advice early this morning. Our clear travel advice is now do not travel to Hamid Karzai International Airport. And if you're in the area of the airport, move to a safe location and await further advice. Afghanistan remains highly volatile and dangerous. Be aware of the potential for violence and security threats with large crowds. There is an ongoing and very high threat of terrorist attack. That is the revised travel advice which we have issued. It is consistent with revised travel advices issued by both New Zealand and the United Kingdom in recent hours.
In other news, resistance to the Taliban has spread extensively across Afghanistan, and the hardline Islamists will be unable to crush it in the wake of their takeover. That, according to the brother of famed commander Ahmad Shah Massoud. The comments by Ahmad Wali Massoud to AFP in Paris come as his nephew Ahmad Massoud, the son of the commander slain in 2001, seeks to lead alongside former Vice President Amrullah Saleh an armed resistance based in the Panjshir Valley north of Kabul. Take a look.
The Taliban know that this time they are confronting the people of the resistance, the people who have got kind of the motivation, the spirit, and the people, the constituency to stand up. So they know that they are confronting quite a different force than what it was before. Is that the resistance geography have expanded so much across Afghanistan. Because at the moment, the women of Afghanistan are the resistance because their values are very different from Taliban. The young generation of Afghanistan, which makes up 70% of the population, they're part of the resistance. The civil society are part of the resistance. So it means that the resistance are not only limited in a sort of military framework in some part of Afghanistan, but also across the country. Suppose that the Taliban attack tomorrow. Suppose they gain some victory in Panjshir, but the resistance will not die. Let me put it this way, everybody wants peace, but the way I can see the Taliban, they don't seem to really kind of seek for peace because they think that they are victorious, so they can determine their own. We have not seen yet the evidence if they want peace. So therefore, the spirit of the resistance must be kept high.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization warned that it has enough medical supplies to last it 1 week only following the blistering Taliban takeover of Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, 10 days ago. Again, let's listen in.
But WHO now only has enough supplies in country to last for 1 week. Yesterday, 70% of these supplies were released to health facilities. Countries sending in empty planes to pick up evacuates do not feel they are able to help. This includes the immediate establishment of a reliable and robust humanitarian approach to send in supplies.
Mandari said that 500 metric tons of medicines and supplies stored in Dubai were unable to be delivered due to the chaotic evacuation efforts at Kabul Airport, which doesn't have the capacity to receive commercial flights.
Meanwhile, Russia said Thursday it has received new orders for arms and helicopters from Central Asian republics bordering Afghanistan following the Taliban's takeover of the country. Take a look. Now, the orders come as countries in the ex-Soviet region where Moscow holds military bases have raised concerns over the militant groups sweeping to power. We are already working on a number of orders from countries in the region for the supply of Russian helicopters, firearms, and modern border protection systems. That, according to Alexander Mikheev, the head of Russia's state arms exporter, Rosoboronexport, told the RIA Novosti news agency. Now, while Russia remains cautiously optimistic about the new leadership in Kabul, it has warned off militants entering neighboring countries as refugees. Uzbekistan and Tajikistan earlier this month held joint military exercises with Russia close to their borders with Afghanistan. While the Taliban has said it does not pose a threat to Central Asian countries, the ex-Soviet republics in the region have previously been targeted by attacks attributed to allies of Afghan Islamists.
Now, Japan will halt the use of 1.63 million doses of Moderna's COVID vaccines after reports of contamination in several vials, drug maker Takeda and the Health Ministry said today. Take a look. Now, Takeda, which is in charge of sales and distribution of the Moderna shot in Japan, said it had received reports from several vaccination centers that foreign substances have been found inside unopened vials. The firm said it had informed Moderna and requested an urgent investigation. Moderna did not immediately respond to a request for a comment. Takeda didn't detail the nature of the contamination, but said it had not so far received any reports of health concerns arising from the affected doses. Contaminants were seen inside vials from one of the 3 batches, but officials suspended the use of vials from the 2 others as a precaution, according to the top government spokesman, Katsunobu Kato. But he said they have not received reports of health problems stemming from the foreign object, but they are asking people to consult their physicians if they experience any abnormality. Japanese media said 3 batches were all produced in Spain at the same time. Contaminants were seen in 39 unopened vials at 8 vaccination locations in central Japan, including Tokyo, according to national broadcaster NHK. The Defense Ministry said doses from a suspended batch had been administered between August 6th to the 20th at its mass vaccination center in the western city of Osaka. Kato said there had been no concrete reports that doses confirmed to contain contaminants had been administered. The Health Ministry also said it would work with Takeda to secure alternative doses to avoid disruption to the country's vaccine program. Takeda Pharmaceutical declined to elaborate details, citing Moderna's investigation, but a company spokesman said the firm encouraged the public to seek vaccine shots. Around 43% of Japan's population has been fully vaccinated as the country battles a record surge of virus cases driven by the more contagious Delta variant. Around 15,500 people have died from COVID-19 in the country during the pandemic, and large parts of Japan are under virus restrictions.
Staying in Japan, where police are looking for the perpetrator of an acid attack on the Tokyo subway that left 2 people injured. We have Dennis Liu for the report. Dennis.
Pub Alma and CJ. 2 people suffered burns in an acid attack at the Tokyo subway station, with the perpetrator still at large. Police and local media said Wednesday the attack took place at Shirokane Takanawa Station in an upscale part of Tokyo on Tuesday night, while the Paralympics opening ceremony was being held under tight security in the capital. According to the subway operator and law enforcement authorities, the suspect threw the acid at the man as he overtook him from the right side. The woman sustained burns after slipping on the liquid on the floor and falling into it. The 2 victims were standing near an elevator in the subway station. Public broadcaster NHK said the man was severely injured by the liquid, which it named as sulfuric acid. A 34-year-old woman also fell and reportedly suffered minor burns to her legs. The middle-aged suspect is still at large. The incident follows a random attack by a knife-wielding man on an Odakyu Electric Railway commuter train in Tokyo earlier this month, which left 10 people injured amid heightened security for the Tokyo Olympics. Violent crime is comparatively rare in Japan, which has strict gun laws, although there are occasionally attacks involving other weapons. During the Olympics earlier in August, 10 people were wounded, one of them seriously, in a stabbing attack on a commuter train in Tokyo. The suspect later handed himself in after fleeing the scene. Around 60,000 police officers are being deployed for the Olympics and Paralympics, according to Japanese media. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
In other news, Egypt today partially reopened the Rafa crossing with the Gaza Strip, allowing one-way traffic into Palestinian enclave. As Israel eased import restrictions for the territory it has blockaded since 2007. Rafa, Gaza's only gateway to the outside world, not controlled by Israel, was shut on Monday by Egypt, which gave no reason for the move. But it came after Gazans on Saturday staged protests and violent riots along the border with Israel, which killed one Palestinian and left dozens of others injured, and an Israeli soldier in critical condition from a gunshot wound. Egypt, a key mediator between Israel and the Hamas militants who control the coastal enclave, has previously used Rafah closures as a punitive measure against Hamas. Late Wednesday, Hamas's Interior Ministry announced that Rafah would open to incoming traffic on Thursday and to two-way traffic on Sunday. People had begun to cross after midday, and according to an AFP journalist, border protests and riots on Wednesday in southern Gaza left 20 Palestinians following confrontations with Israeli troops, but the violence was more muted than on Saturday. Hamas police made efforts to contain Wednesday's unrest by preventing people from approaching the border fence. The Israeli military branch, meanwhile, responsible for civil affairs in Palestinian territories, or the COGAT, said more goods would be allowed to enter Gaza from Thursday. They would include equipment for international civilian projects and new vehicles, among other measures, it said in a statement. Israel also agreed to boost by 1,000 the number of merchants allowed through its Erez crossing to Gaza. Israel has hit Hamas targets in Gaza with airstrikes twice in the last week, with no casualties reported. Thursday marks 3 months since an Egypt-brokered ceasefire ended 11 days of conflict between Hamas and Israel, the worst fighting between the two sides in years.
Here in the Philippines now, President Rodrigo Duterte has made up his mind to join the 2022 vice presidential race, as he believes his daughter, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, is not interested in running for president, that according to Malacanang. In an online press briefing, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said Duterte thinks that he can now seek the vice presidency since Sara seemed to be not bent on joining the presidential elections next year. Take a look.
I think, among others, the statement was the basis for the president to conclude that things are clear now, that he can run for vice president because I think his perception is that Mayor Sara Duterte will not run for elections. The president's stand remains. Delicadeza dictates that only one Duterte will run. So since only one Duterte will run, and in his perception, the Mayor Sara will not run, then he can run for vice president. But alam nyo, nothing is final, no, until October. And meanwhile, this is a family matter, no. So I would hope that the rest of the nation give the father and the daughter breathing space to discuss and agree on future course of action.
Also on Wednesday, Roque confirmed that Duterte had made a statement that he and Go would drop their intent to join the 2022 vice presidential and presidential derbies, respectively, if Sara announces her presidential bid. Sara, in response, told Duterte and Go to stop talking about her and make her the reason for them running or not running. Roque, in his latest statement, said Duterte has viewed Sarah's remarks as a pronouncement that she would not run for presidency.
In other news, the death toll from heavy rains that triggered mudslides and floods in western Venezuela has now risen to 20, according to local authorities, with 17 other people missing. 9 states are in an emergency situation, and more than 54,000 people have been affected by the downpours, according to Interior Ministry or Minister Remigio Ceballos, and in a state television address. On Tuesday, he also warned it would continue to rain for the next 10 days. The hardest hit areas are in the state of Merida, where the Mocotis River burst its banks and flooded the village, cutting off electricity and telephone links. Heavy rains have also hit other parts of Venezuela, including the capital, Caracas. The downpours have destroyed more than 8,000 homes in 11 states, according to President Nicolas Maduro, who linked the extreme weather to climate change. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Malalayong lugar ang kanilang narating para maghanap buhay. Tulungan ang pamilyang iniwan sa sariling bayan. Yan ang ating mga overseas Filipino worker. Pero dahil sa di pangkaraniwang pangyayaring hatid ay krisis, may ilan sa kanilang nagpasyang umuwi. Pinagyaman ang sariling lupain, nagtayo ng negosyo na kasama sa puhunan ang sipag at tiyaga. Ang mga OFW, maraming sakripisyo, ninanais maging kapaki-pakinabang maging sa kanilang pagbabalik bansa. Sapagkat ang ating mga bagong bayani, Pilipino pa rin sa puso at damdamin.
Posibleng palawigin ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte ang Visiting Forces Agreement. Tumaas pa ang reproduction number ng COVID-19.
Isinagawa ang turnover ng lineup duty bag sa San Miguel, Bulacan.
Ang maghahayag ng official statement ay ang pamilya.
Hindi lang sa aspetong pang-espiritual hinahangaan ng Iglesia ni Cristo.
Mapaunlad ang kabuhayan ng mga differently abled person.
Bukod sa pagtaguyod ng wika at kulturang Pinoy,
inaasahang bababa pa ang bilang ng mga Pinoy na walang trabaho.
Sumusunod sa mga alituntuning ipinatutupad ng gobyerno bilang pag-iingat sa COVID-19.
Isa sa naging dahilan ng paglaang pagtaas ng tubig dito noong mga nakaraang araw.
Handa ng Senado at Kamara na magpasa ng mga panukalang batas.
Umunlad ang peace and order sa bansa sa panahon ng panunungkulan ni Pangulong Duterte.
May ilang nagkaroon ng Delta variant ng COVID-19 ang nabakunahan na. Magandang gabi, Pilipinas.
Miss na kita. Ilang araw na tayong di nagkikita, baby. Miss na kita. Huwag ka nang magalit sa akin, baby. Halika na dito.
Hello guys, this is Martin Venegas. Please catch me on Letters and Music on air and online this coming Sunday, August 29, 1 to 2 p.m. only here at Net 25. See ya!
Welcome back to the news. Australian airline Qantas on Thursday posted more than $1 billion in annual losses after what it described as a diabolical year caused by pandemic travel restrictions. The national flag carrier reported 1.83 billion Australian dollars in underlying pre-tax losses for the 12 months to June 30, rising to 2.35 billion Australian dollars, or about 1.7 billion US dollars, when including one-off costs such as redundancy payouts and mothballing aircraft. It comes on top of almost $2 billion in statutory pre-tax losses reported in the previous financial year, when airlines globally were hit with the initial impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. Qantas CEO Alan Joyce predicted the airline's revenues will have plunged to more than 20 billion US dollars by the end of 2021 as a result of COVID-19. The airline said periods of open borders within Australia in early 2021 had briefly boosted revenue, but a return to internal restrictions after a prolonged Delta variant outbreak in Sydney has forced the widespread cancellation of flights.
In other aviation news, Air New Zealand managed to cut its losses by a third in the last financial year as strong domestic and cargo demand partially offset the impact of the global pandemic, according to the airline today. The flag carrier said its net loss for the 12 months to the end of June was 289 million New Zealand dollars, or 202 million US dollars, compared with the 454 million the previous year. The result was boosted by a 71% increase in cargo revenue and a recovery in domestic demand to 93% of pre-pandemic levels. However, border closures meant operating revenue slipped 48% to 2.5 billion New Zealand dollars. Chairwoman Therese Walsh said the loss reflected a reality in which Air New Zealand was still unable to operate two-thirds of its passenger network.
In other news, U.S. indices hit records again in Wednesday's session as investors renewed their faith that the current COVID-19 surge will end, though trading was subdued elsewhere in the world. Now, the S&P 500 closed above 4,500 for the first time, closing just below that level with a second straight record amid signs infections from the fast-spreading Delta variant of the virus may have plateaued. And the tech-rich NASDAQ ended at a new all-time high for the third session in a row. Analysts from Charles Schwab Investment Bank said the rebound for stocks has come amid cooling concerns about the global spread of the Delta variant, as data suggests cases may be peaking, and as the U.S. Drug Administration fully approved a coronavirus vaccine this week. Markets generally retreated last week on worries over the Delta variant, Afghanistan turmoil, China concerns, and expectations that the Fed or the FED will begin tapering financial support. However, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration decision on Monday to give full approval to the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine has provided a huge lift to sentiment and eased Delta worries in the world stock economy.
Meanwhile, South Korea today became one of the first major economies to hike interest rates following the coronavirus pandemic, as authorities try to rein in growing household debt and a frenzied housing market. The Central Bank of Korea raised its key rate to 0.75% from a record low of 0.5%, where it had been since May 2020, with officials asserting the economy was experiencing a sound recovery. A few countries have begun to lift borrowing costs, among them Brazil, Russia, Chile, and Mexico. And investors around the world are watching closely for when the U.S. Federal Reserve will start to taper its huge stimulus programs. It was its first rate rise since November 2018 and came as authorities in the world's 12th largest economy grapple with surging household debt and an overheated housing market, which analysts warn could threaten economic stability.
Bitcoin billionaire Brock Pierce supports Salvador President Nayib Bukele's plan to implement Bitcoin as a legal tender from the 7th of September.
I'm a fan. I think that he's smart. I think that he's courageous. I think he's brave. And again, time will tell, but my money's on him. Excuse me, my Bitcoin democratizing opportunity. It's creating an open financial system, an open banking system for everyone. It's going to lower costs in many of the forms for remittance. If you're sending money between the United States and Panama, it's going to make it faster and it's going to make it cheaper.
Pierce is the co-founder of one of the first blockchain venture funds and part of the team behind the first initial coin offering. Initiated by President Nayib Bukele, El Salvador's parliament approved a law this month to allow the crypto money to be accepted as tender for all goods and services in the small Central American nation, along with the US dollar, its national currency. The crypto money will become legal tender in September.
The processing of artificial intelligence, or AI, is expected to be an emerging industry for the Philippines following the growth of the business process outsourcing, or BPO sector in the past decades. Reporting to President Duterte during the talk to the nation on Tuesday night, DTI, or Department of Trade and Industry Secretary Ramon Lopez, said the government and private sector are pushing for the expansion of AI technology in the country. Take a look.
Maiba lang ako ng konti, sa unang pagkakataon, ang Pilipinas ay nagkaroon din ng tinatawag na AI or Artificial Intelligence Roadmap. Ito po yung mga usapin ngayon sa mga technology. Nilunsad po ito ng DTI noong Mayo at hindi lamang malalaking kumpanya ang makikinabang dito. Kaya natin tinutulak ito kasi gusto natin pati micro SME ay makikinabang dito. In other words, big companies will not have the monopoly of AI. Ang AI ay isang teknolohiya na magagamit ng kahit anong kumpanya, lalo na SME, sa pag-process ng kanilang mga information. Kunwari, alamin nila sa farmers, anong magandang itanim sa anong lugar, sa anong buwan. Sa mga kumpanya, saan ako mas magandang mag-put up ng next branch ko. All this information will be processed. Hindi na siya kukumputin pa ng tao. AI na yung nagko-compute nun. Sa central bank din, imbis na 50,000 man-hours ang gagawa ng mga pag-analyze ng financial statement, ngayon minuto na lang dahil po dyan sa AI na yan. So, ang gagawin po natin, ngayon po, ang dami na naming nakausap dito at i-incorporate po natin dahil nag-uusap po kami ni Secretary Dominguez, maganda ho itong AI ay gawing private sector-led, government-initiated, at i-involve natin maraming kumpanya at saka kasama rin ng DOST sa mga usapan na to at magkaroon tayo ng isang National Center for AI Research. Ang technology partner natin dito, yung AIM, yung Asian Institute of Management Data Science Laboratory. In the near future, magiging big data AI processing hub na rin ng Pilipinas. Itong nakikita natin na next center for excellence. After BPO, kasi sikat ng Pilipinas ngayon BPO, ito ang magiging next BPO natin, yung AI Center for Research Center. At ibig sabihin, mas maraming magpapagawa ng AI analysis sa Pilipinas as our service, gamit ang AI. At siyempre, ito pong AI research ay higit na makakatulong sa pagtulong sa mga kumpanyang maging mas competitive at efficient ang kanilang operations. At ang maganda ho talaga dito, kaya ho government ang tumutulak, kasi as we provide those research projects, ang natitrain nito data scientists from universities na may trabaho sila, sinasagot nila yung industry problem with an AI solution. So makaka-develop tayo ng maraming data scientists at eventually ito po ay makatatayo rin ng mga AI companies nila or i-hire sila ng mga kumpanya. So mga high-tech jobs ang mapoproduce nito. Data scientists, dahil masasanay silang mag-solve ng mga problema, ng mga industry problems. No?
Meanwhile, Facebook is ready to launch a digital wallet that would let users store cryptocurrencies. That, according to a senior company executive in a U.S. media interview yesterday. David Marquez, head of Facebook's crypto unit, told the information news site that company leaders feel pretty committed to launch the digital wallet called Novi this year. Marquez said he would have preferred to release Novi alongside Diem, a digital currency tied to the dollar that the company is also developing. But Diem's timing wasn't certain. Now, in 2019, Facebook said it plans to introduce a cryptocurrency that at the time was called Libra. The project, however, faced regulatory resistance over concerns about security and reliability. In December 2020, the Libra changed its name to Diem and moved its operations from Switzerland to the United States as part of a strategic shift. News will be back with more stories. Don't go away.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights, sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Ang trabaho naman talaga ng maritime group ng PNP is to enforce the maritime laws.
Tayo lang yung stricto, pero in other parts of the country, pwede na naman ang tourism.
Definitely, we are ready to respond to a possible spike.
Sapagkat ang aming intensyon ay makatulong lang sa mga tao na wala talagang magamit na gamot.
92 voted for this resolution, which will make it stronger, calling on the Justice Department to come up with more stringent ways to be able to avert these hate crimes against Asian Americans.
Mas marami po tayong magagamit ngayon na mga tools or mga equipment.
Maraming salamat, Weng, at sa buong puwersa ng Balitalakayan sa pagkakataong ito.
Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa...
At itong Balitalakayan, we live in interesting times.
Sila ang mga kinikilalang bayaning may mahalagang papel para makamit ang kalayaan at pagbabago sa Pilipinas. Pero sa panahong ito, may mga bagong bayaning nakikipaglaban sa sakit na lumaganap sa buong daigdig, ang COVID-19. Ang ating mga frontliner, gaya ng healthcare workers, mga doktor, nurses, medical technologists, at iba pang health professionals, mga pulis, sundalo, security guards, mga tauhan na nangangalaga sa seguridad at mahahalagang pangangailangan ng bawat komunidad. Ang mga bagong bayani, ating pasalamatan kilalanin ang kanilang sakripisyo at serbisyo para sa lahat.
Welcome back. Australia today reported more than 1,000 new local coronavirus cases for the first time during the pandemic as a Delta variant outbreak surged in Sydney. Now, despite the soaring figures and growing pressure on hospitals, State Premier Gladys Berejiklian announced a modest easing of restrictions for vaccinated people from mid-September. Let's listen in.
Where I am, there's 6.
New South Wales reported 1,029 locally acquired cases of COVID in the 24 hours to 8 p.m. last night, and there were 5 overseas cases. We have 698 people admitted to hospital and 116 people in intensive care, 43 who require ventilation. The vast majority of people, 102 of the 116 people in ICU, are not vaccinated. So again, please do not delay. Access vaccines now. Vaccines are available through pharmacies, GPs, through the booking system, so go online. Please get vaccinated.
Given that acute situation in Western New South Wales and Dubbo in particular, the regional lockdown will be extended to all of regional New South Wales until at least at least midnight Friday the 10th of September. Now, pleased to announce that given we did get to the 6 million jabs, that from the 13th of September, so in a couple of weeks, in the local government areas of concern, families, a household, will now be able to go out for an hour of recreation on top of the hour of exercise. So a family will be able to sit in a park so long as the adults are vaccinated.
Meanwhile, Victoria State, which is grappling with a smaller outbreak that emerged in Melbourne, announced a further 80 new cases today. More than half of Australia's 25 million people are stuck in lockdown, including in Sydney, where residents have been under stay-at-home orders for more than 2 months. Australia's sluggish vaccine rollout has picked up in recent weeks as more supplies reach the country, with almost 1/3 of adults now fully vaccinated. The nation has recorded almost 48,000 cases and nearly 1,000 deaths during the pandemic to date.
I want the highest number of people vaccinated as possible. That, according to New Zealand's Ardern during a press conference in Wellington, as she notes record numbers in the vaccination program and the positive impacts of the lockdown. New Zealand reported 68 community cases of COVID-19 today, bringing the total number of community cases to 277. Take a look.
I want the highest number of people vaccinated as possible, not only because that gives us the best chance at maintaining, a level of normality in our lives. That's what protects those people's lives. And that's got to be our collective goal, to look after the team of 5 million. Yesterday was another record day for the vaccination program, with 87,772 doses administered. We also hit another key milestone, with now more than 3 million doses having been administered since our vaccination campaign began. And yesterday also saw the largest number of bookings made in a single day through Book My Vaccine, with more than 270,000 bookings entered as we opened up the 30-plus age band. That means 73% of New Zealanders aged 30-plus have now either booked or had at least one vaccination.
New Zealand extended a national COVID-19 lockdown Monday, with Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern saying a Delta variant outbreak has yet to peak. Ardern said the rapid spread of the highly transmissible variant meant it was too early to lift restrictions imposed last week after a virus cluster emerged in Auckland, ending a 6-month run of no local cases.
Meanwhile, Russia on Thursday recorded its highest daily coronavirus death toll as the country struggles with the aggressive Delta variant and slowing vaccination rates. A government tally reported 820 fatalities over the past 24 hours and 19,630 new cases. Russia, the fourth worst hit country in the world in terms of cases, has since mid-June been hit by a new wave of infections driven by the Delta variant. While the number of daily infections is now on the decline, Russia has hit record daily deaths several times in August. The new figures bring Russia's total fatalities from COVID-19 to 179,243, the highest toll in Europe. And this figure, however, only takes into account fatalities where the virus was established as the primary cause of death after an autopsy. Under a broader definition for deaths linked to the coronavirus, statistics agency Rosstat reported at the end of June that Russia has seen more than 300,000 fatalities. Authorities have struggled with a vaccine skeptic population, with independent polls showing that a majority of Russians do not plan to get inoculated. Moscow, the epicenter of Russia's pandemic, and several other regions have introduced mandatory vaccinations for some groups of citizens and incentives to get jabbed. While the measures initially sped up Russia's vaccination campaign, the inoculation drive has been faltering since mid-August.
Meanwhile, over the last 30 years, the burden of hypertension has shifted from wealthy nations to low and middle-income countries, according to a report led by Imperial College London and the World Health Organization. The first comprehensive analysis of trends in hypertension prevalence, detection, treatment, and control, published on Wednesday, and The Lancet also found that the number of adults aged 30 to 79 years with hypertension has doubled from 650 million to 1.28 billion, and nearly half these people did not know they had hypertension. Take a look.
There are nearly 1.3 billion people, 2.8 billion people in the world that have hypertension. Perhaps one of the most important findings is that this is by far a dominant issue in low and middle income countries and in some of the countries in Central and Eastern Europe. It's far from being a condition of affluence. It's very much a condition of poverty. Almost half of them don't even know that they have hypertension. And for many of us, and many of you undoubtedly, you might be traveling in a country. There are people who have had hypertension for years and decades, and they have never had their blood pressure measured because they have not had that opportunity. Whereas countries with good health systems do this quite routinely.
We need to close three gaps. First of all, there is the gap of getting diagnosed. The second is the gaps to get treated, and the third thing is to get controlled. And before, we haven't been able to look at the full cascade of things. We have an estimated 1.28 billion adults aged 30 to 79 worldwide that have hypertension, but few have control. So only 23% of women and 18% of men have control, as I mentioned before.
The study used blood pressure measurement and treatment data from more than 100 million people aged 30 to 79 years in 184 countries, covering 99% of the global population, which makes it the most comprehensive review of global trends in hypertension to date. By analyzing this massive amount of data, the researchers found that Canada, Peru, and Switzerland had among the lowest prevalence of hypertension in the world in 2019, while some of the highest rates were seen in the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and Paraguay for women, and Hungary and Paraguay and Poland for men.
We just got our blood pressure checked this morning.
I was just about to say that we have to have ourselves checked out,
Yes.
especially based on what was said in the report. A lot of people don't actually know they have.
Yes, that's true. And I remember my dad. My dad is really hypertensive. I mean, he goes like 190 over. The diastolic is also high, so I reported that. So I got that report, yeah. And my dad is like, but he got to 80 years old before he left us. He, because of the high blood pressure, he got an enlarged heart. He developed an enlarged heart because of the, so.
And especially
it's good to watch out here.
Yeah, especially with the coronavirus now, that would the symptoms would be heightened with the virus. Take care, everyone. Get yourselves checked out.
That's true.
Podcast again. Thank you so much for joining us. The news continues tomorrow. I am CJ Hero. Join us then.
And before we go, CJ, I have some greetings here for our brothers and sisters in Ginobatan, Albay. It is the 74th anniversary of the Church of Christ there. Happy anniversary po, mga kapatid po namin dyan. God bless po, and may you have many more years of service to our Lord God, and may you be blessed even more. Thank you. And
to the community as well.
Yes, that's true. Happy anniversary po sa inyo. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.